New York City is issuing one of the nation's most strict vaccine mandates. Mayor Bill de Blasio announced the move yesterday. Starting December 27th, all private sector employees who work in person must have at least one COVID-19 shot. There's no testing option. The new requirements are expected to affect around 184,000 businesses. In addition, the mayor says that everyone older than 12 will soon need to be fully vaccinated to participate in indoor activities. De Blasio justified these tight restrictions during his news conference.
On a strategic level, it's the reason New York City is back in so many ways, and it's the reason we can avoid shutdowns and restrictions. Is more use of vaccination. So that's why we are taking aggressive action today. We are not going back to what happened in 2020.
Dr. Dyan Hes joins me now. She is the founder of Gramercy Pediatrics. So, Doctor, Bill de Blasio also announced that kids ages 5 to 11 will need at least one dose of the vaccine in order to participate in indoor activities. What do you make of it?
Well, I think it's great, but the biggest thing we need the vaccines in schools. So the biggest indoor activity that kids participate in is school, and that's where we're seeing the spread right now. So I think that there's a lot of politics involved with the parent associations, the teachers unions, like forcing the children to get vaccinated for something that's not. This is what everybody cries who are like avoiding the vaccine. It's not FDA approved. It's only emergency authorization use. So they're not what they're saying in New York is that they can't mandate it in the schools, but now they're mandating it for band and for dance and for sports. The kids spend all their time in school. I have seen more cases of COVID in the past 2 weeks than I have seen in the whole pandemic in New York in children, because the unvaccinated are the only ones who are getting it now. And I have many patients who haven't made it from the first vaccine to the second vaccine who have caught COVID this week, in the last 3 weeks since we've spoken. They're all doing fine, but those families are on 10-day quarantine.
Do you think that has anything to do with the Thanksgiving break and that people gather?
No, I just think it has to do with breakthrough COVID in the adults, because most of the school districts now in New York are vaccinated. So the teachers might have it, it's breakthrough, but in the children, it's not breakthrough. There are many, many children who are unvaccinated still, especially under age 12 in New York City. I think New York City has been remarkable, and kudos to de Blasio.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you about those parents who haven't vaccinated their kids or haven't completed the vaccination and kind of delaying the second dose. I mean, what are your conversations with them like? What are they saying?
I just spoke with a parent now who actually got COVID, and I said, and she called me because now her daughter has a fever. And I said, why didn't you get the vaccine? And she literally said, because I'm an idiot. And it's, I almost appreciated it, her honesty, because she is so sick and I hope she's doing better. And I just wanted to know, just like you said, why aren't they getting it? I wanted to know what the reasoning was, why she didn't get the vaccine. And I think people are just still listening to misinformation. I think I've told you this. I've had patients who put their children on the schedule to come and get the vaccine, and then the grandparents call and say, oh, I watched this on the news and you can't do it. And this, and for all these, made up reasons and fictional, reasons. And the parents are afraid. And I just had another message yesterday from somebody who's in medicine. She's a paraprofessional. She's an extremely bright woman. And she, I used to be her daughter's pediatrician. They moved out during the pandemic. And she said, I trust you. Talk to me about fertility, because whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do. And that's the kind of conversations we have to have. And ask questions, get your information, and then make your decision, but base it on science, not on rumors.
Yeah. Listen, when the vaccine first rolled out, you shared with us some of the logistical issues that you had to deal with. I'm wondering how things are going now.
So for me, personally, they're going pretty well. This Saturday, we ran out of vaccines, so we had to cancel 10 appointments. Because what happens is that when you make and this is more technical, when you open the vial, you have 10 doses, and you have to use them within 6 hours. So if you don't know that you're having 10 more patients coming in the next 6 hours, you can't open a new vial for one patient that shows up, because then the 9 doses would go to waste. So if you have no-shows, if any doctor's office calculated, I'm having this many kids come in, and then 4 of them forgot they had soccer practice and went, you can't open that new vial. But that being said, parents have been extremely understanding. And, we got the doses yesterday. But I have many, many pediatrician friends who have never gotten their first shipment because they've just put so many barriers into filling out this paperwork, and nobody really understands what they're missing. They're like, wait, I filled out the paperwork in May, and then I filled it out in October, and now it's already December, and I still didn't get my first shipment. So there are many pediatricians who are upset. And I mean, again, this weekend and tomorrow, I have many doctors who are bringing their own kids to my office because their pediatricians have not gotten the vaccine, and they just want it done in a doctor's office.
Oh my goodness, I just can't believe that we haven't worked out these kinks yet. No. I mean, after sort of the whole rollout with adults, you'd think it would be absolutely smooth sailing as additional age groups were added. Let me ask you about this new variant. So every day we sort of learn something new, and what I gather from it in general is that it may be more contagious, but the symptoms may be milder. But we're talking about adults here. Have we learned anything about the Omicron virus in children?
Not really yet. Nothing to make a conclusion. It would just be hearsay, if I said it now. But I can tell you that all of my patients who've had COVID the past 2 or 3 weeks, it's been mild. Look, aside from making the diagnosis of COVID, and I've said this before, I really don't get follow-up calls. It's not like my child has a raging fever and should we go to the hospital? It's like, oh darn, we have COVID. Tell me about quarantine, and they just run it like it rides out as a cold. And if anything, I would say the colds are not as bad right now. So maybe the Omicron variant is the cause. I don't know. That's just conjecture because we don't test all the specimens. It's very expensive. And it doesn't, right now for us in pediatrics, it's not changing the management. I guess in the hospitals, if they're seeing many sicker adults who are unvaccinated with Omicron, then, we might have a different guideline. But it's way too soon to tell, especially because COVID gets worse as the week goes on. Like you start out with a mild cold, then you have some respiratory difficulty, and then you might end in the hospital 10 days later. So we're just waiting for that shoe to drop, I guess.
So, now we're in the middle of the holiday season. We know that, I know I've been getting all kinds of invitations to different events. People are just kind of like, okay, we've had it, right? We're having these holiday events. And I'm finding myself having to sort of pick and choose, the groups of people that we've kind of been hanging out with. I think it's okay. I trust their decision making. And then we're being invited to larger parties with larger groups. And I'm right now kind of feeling a horrible mom because I know I'm going to tell my kid that she can't go to one of these parties. I just don't feel comfortable with an indoor party. That being said, she still has to go to school. We're hearing reports, of parents sending their kids to school even after their kids have already tested positive for COVID. Maybe it's because they don't see any symptoms. They think, what's the harm? But I'm wondering, I know you've always said kids should be in school. Do you still think the mask wearing and the hand washing and what's in place now is good enough to keep our kids protected?
Yes, I definitely do. I actually think that the mask wearing for kids under age 5 is 5 and under is not really that effective because I see tons of sick kids every day. They just don't have COVID because there's not a lot of COVID. When kids are getting COVID, they're mostly getting it from the teacher who brought them to school or another adult. But that being said, if your kid can go to school and keep their mask on, definitely send them to school. The benefits outweigh the risks by far. COVID is really in most children, 99.9% a mild viral illness. And I'm seeing much sicker kids now. Now we're seeing an uptick of flu in New York City. I had 2 flu positives yesterday. So I think that your child should definitely go to school. And I think that's what the hard part is when people say, oh, you're not coming to my party, but you send your kid to school every day. But you have to say, well, the benefits my child gets from school is education, and it might be higher risk to just go to a party and run around. Definitely fun. It's really like a personal choice. The other thing is that COVID really doesn't discriminate. You can be so safe. And I just had this family that called me last night with breaks. The child got COVID from a teacher in school. She has 1 vaccine. This was the safest family. You can do everything right and still get COVID. I got COVID last year and I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I went to somebody in my pod who would be safe. I don't know if I got it at the hospital when I was getting a procedure. You never know, and you can't blame. So, but if you don't feel comfortable, just don't do it. It's life goes on. You have to just make your own choices, I guess, for your family.
All right, Dr. Dyan Hes, thank you so much.
Thank you.